Hi, Simon Chappell here. I'm the Quit Alcohol Coach, and as always, I want to make sure that you smash your sobriety. If you enjoy the videos on my YouTube channel, press the little red button on the screen so you subscribe and you get notified every time there's a new one. New videos come out every Tuesday and every Thursday. And if you need help quitting drinking, you're welcome to join my program, which you can join free for the first 14 days at joinbesober.com. Today, I wanted to talk about people who live in fear of relapsing or having a setback. I don't really like the term relapse. Let's use the term setback. It's a fairly common feeling to experience. Maybe after a few weeks or a couple of months being alcohol free, you start to live with this fear that you're going to have a slip up, you're going to drink again, that this can't actually be real. How can you possibly be achieving this after all these years of drinking? It's bound to go wrong at some point. And living with that fear can be really uncomfortable. And this video is all about giving you some tactics that will help you learn to draw on your own strength and to start having some real belief in what you're doing and help you overcome that feeling of living with a fear that everything's going to go wrong at some point. Because when we live with that feeling, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we think that it's going to go wrong, the more likely it is to go wrong. So we need to start changing up the way that we think, look at our mindset and make sure that we've got some proper tactics and tools that we can turn to whenever those feelings arise. So let's dive into a few of the best strategies for dealing with that fear of having a setback after you've quit drinking. My first suggestion is to trust your own strength. Use your journal to write down a time when you've been strong and determined in your life to achieve something and you've seen it through and you've absolutely done it. And that could be anything from having a baby, moving house, moving city, ending a relationship, or changing your career or your position in the company you work in. Something that you decided you were going to do it and you saw it through. You were strong, you were determined. If you write that down in your journal and recognize that you do have inner strength and you do have the ability to see things through, see that as some kind of affirmation that you can complete things, you can stick to things. And what you're doing in this situation is giving yourself false stories that have absolutely no substance. They're simply fear-based. So look at the evidence around times in your life when you have achieved something challenging, something difficult, and you've been determined, you've been strong, and you've seen it through. My next tip, again, using your journal, is to look at how much better equipped you are now than you've been in the past. So you may have had multiple attempts to quit drinking, but I bet you know more now than you knew back then. You might have read more books, you might have watched more videos like this or joined programs. So you're much better equipped than you were previously, which means you're far, far less likely to have a setback. You've probably got connections and friends that you might have made online in some of the sober groups. You've probably got new tactics and tools, journaling, meditating, all the other tactics for dealing with cravings and any discomfort that comes up that you may not have had in the past. You might have felt before that you were white knuckling it, gritting your teeth and just hanging on in there, resisting the temptation to have a drink. Whereas now you might find that you feel free. You just don't want to drink, not a feeling that you can't have one. And that's a big, big difference. So look at where you are now. Write this down in your journal compared to where you were and notice how much stronger and how much better equipped you are. If you're thinking of sobriety a bit like climbing a mountain, maybe last time your backpack didn't have the right tools in it. This time you've got the right boots, you've got the right tools so you can clamber your way up the icy ridge and get over the most challenging crevices and difficult obstacles on the journey up the side of the mountain. You are better equipped now. And as you go forward, you will become even better equipped if you continue your learning and you keep educating yourself. The next strategy for dealing with that fear of having a setback is to notice every time you start thinking about having a slip up. Try and get used to picking yourself up when you do it. And then the tactic I want you to use is to switch that around. So let's say it's mid-morning and you're sat in your office at work, you've had a few thoughts about drinking, and then you start thinking, oh my God, what if I drank? This is all going to go wrong. Surely I can't keep this up. And you start thinking about having a setback. As soon as you notice yourself doing that, I want you to write down 3 successes you've had in your sobriety. So that could be, I've been sober for 2 weeks. It could be, I've been out socially without drinking and I really enjoyed that. And it could be noticing how much your relationship with your children has improved by you being present because you're not drinking and that you're much more connected. So each time you have a thought that you're going to have a setback, you're worrying about relapsing, even though you are sober, I want you to switch it round and write down 3 successes that you've had in your sober journey. And they can be anything, and you can get really creative with it. But I want you to switch that thinking. As soon as that negative, false story about having a setback comes up, I want you to think positive, and I want you to think about the successes you've been having in sobriety instead. And writing it down is really powerful. Just that process of getting pen on paper, getting it out of your head and getting it down in writing, it makes such a huge difference. Rather than just thinking it, I want you to actually write this down. It's really, really powerful. And you'll start to train yourself that every time one of those thoughts comes up, it's time to start thinking positive and to celebrate the success that you've been having. And another tactic you can use when those thoughts come up, as well as writing down your successes, is to see it as a signpost that it's time to get busy. It's time to do something. So whatever you do, do not dwell on those thoughts. See it as an opportunity to go and do something that you really enjoy, or something that takes your mind away from those negative thoughts about having a setback. That could be anything from walking the dog to knitting to doing a puzzle, or for going for a run, heading to the gym. Whatever it is that works for you, this could be a sign that your mind needs some stimulation. Often reading a book is an excellent way to draw you away from those negative thoughts. I use that all the time. And meditation is incredible for just allowing you to still your mind and to get away from anything that's causing you discomfort. Test out all the different strategies. There's loads of them right here on my YouTube channel, and find the ones that work for you. But use those feelings, those negative feelings, as a signpost that, first of all, as I said, I want you to write down your successes. But secondly, it might be a sign that you need to go and do something. You need to get busy. You need to get active. Find what works for you and then get off your butt and do it. Another great tip is to know that this is just a fantasy. Sometimes we fantasize about alcohol. We have this false vision of what it was like, and we start to believe that it was oh so wonderful when we were drinking. It's absolute BS. It wasn't like that, was it? If you're really true and honest with yourself, and you look at the reasons why you quit and all the damage that alcohol was causing, you know for sure that it wasn't a good time. Yeah, there might have been some good times and some memories mixed in there that were positive, but you probably would have made those same positive memories even if you weren't drinking. You've probably heard me talk about the 2 weddings that I've been to since I quit drinking. One of them was absolutely amazing. It was my best friend and I knew everybody at the wedding. I had a great time and I danced and spoke to people all night, laughing and enjoying myself. The second wedding that I went to sober, we were invited as last minute guests. I didn't really know anybody there. And quite frankly, it was boring. I didn't have a good time and I ended up leaving early. The point I'm trying to make is that an event is fun because it's fun, not because of the booze. And you need to understand that. One of those events was amazing. One of them was terrible. Alcohol was not involved in either of them for me. And it was all about the event. And I know that booze would not have made it better. If anything, it probably would have made it worse. So stop fantasizing about those good old days with alcohol. And remember, there was a time when we were in a state of ignorant bliss. We didn't realize we had a problem with alcohol. We were slowly killing ourselves though. I absolutely was doing that. And then we move into a place where we have internal conflict. Half of our mind, our conscious mind, wants us to quit drinking. The other half, our subconscious, wants us to carry on with the same old habits that we've always had. It wants us to keep drinking. And the two go to war in your head. And that's the most uncomfortable stage. But once you've entered that stage, you can never, ever return to ignorant bliss. And many people after they've quit or during the process of quitting drinking, end up taking a drink, thinking that they will return to this place of ignorant bliss that used to exist. It no longer exists. All that happens is you go back to a place of internal conflict and you just fuel the fires of war in your own head. There's another video on my YouTube channel that goes into this in much more depth, and I'd urge you to take a look at that, because when you realize that by taking a drink, relapsing, having a setback, you are absolutely not going to find any sort of peace. You're not going to go back to ignorant bliss. It almost becomes pointless. There's no point in taking a drink. And if you understand that there's no point in taking a drink because it's going to do absolutely nothing for you other than make the internal conflict worse, you're not going to want to take a drink. Why would you? You're just going to make your internal conflict worse and cause yourself massive discomfort. And when you know that you can never ever return to ignorant bliss, and if you have drunk after you've quit, you already know this. You already know that you can't return to ignorant bliss. So there's literally no point having a drink. And when you know that, it strengthens the resolve not to have a relapse, not to have a setback, because you know that there's no point. You're not actually going to get anything from it. And that should strengthen your position and give you confidence that you're not going to have a relapse if you've now quit, because there's absolutely no point. Why would you do it? It's also important not to test yourself. If you find yourself in situations where you might be tempted to drink or people might pressure you to have a drink, walk away from it. Be kind to yourself. Remove obstacles out of your own way. You might have heard the phrase, if you sit in a barber shop for long enough, you're going to get a haircut. Well, obviously I wouldn't, but that's absolutely true. And if you find yourself sitting in the pub with your friends and repeating the same old routines that you used to, then there's every chance you're going to have a drink. You're going to be in a difficult position. You're going to be needing to use willpower and facing challenges that you could actually move out of your own way. By removing yourself from challenging situations, you actually remove willpower. You remove obstacles out of your own way. So start to notice if you're putting yourself in positions that make your life more difficult, that cause you discomfort, that cause you to use willpower. And when you notice you're doing that, remove yourself out of the situation and do something more healthy instead. Another way of building confidence that you're not going to have a setback is to keep a tally of how often you're thinking about alcohol and how often you're having thoughts that you might have a slip up. One of my clients plays golf. Now, if you've ever played golf, you'll know that they have small scorecards and these really small pencils that come with them. And they are perfect as a tool in sobriety. If you can't get your hands on one of those, any kind of small pen or pencil will do, along with a small piece of card or a small piece of paper. And I'd urge you to do this with paper and a pencil or pen rather than doing it on your phone. It works better when you write it down. Keep that piece of paper or pen or pencil on your person throughout the course of a day. And what I want you to do over the space of a couple of weeks is to keep a tally every time that you either have a negative thought about drinking or you think that you're going to have a slip up at some point in the future of your sobriety. Just a tally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A simple tally like that if you don't know what I'm talking about. And I want you to do that every day. And each time it happens, you pull out your piece of paper and you put another line on your tally. And the reason I want you to do this is I want you to notice that over time, the number of thoughts we have about alcohol or the number of thoughts we have about having a setback, they reduce. They gradually reduce. You will have the odd day where it might go up. It might have been 10 yesterday and it might be 12 today. And then tomorrow it's 7. The next day it's 6. Over time, that curve will come down. But I want you to notice and pay attention to this, because when you pay attention to it and you're logging down that data and you're getting the information for yourself, you will discover that yes, this is reducing, and that will give you confidence that things are getting better, which gives you much more confidence that you're absolutely not going to have a setback. You're not going to drink again in the future. And this is just your mind playing tricks on you. But until you give yourself the data, you're not going to know. Once you've got the information, you'll see there's a downward trend and things are improving. And keep doing that for as long as you need to. Now, I mentioned earlier about turning those thoughts about having a setback into celebrating your success and switching it around. It's also important to work on your mood and your mindset. If you're starting to feel negative, I would urge you to get your journal out and to start to think about all the positives about your new sober life. And you've probably heard me talking about how, for me, the key to smashing sobriety was getting really excited about it, really enthusiastic about what an alcohol-free life looked like to me, and feeling really motivated about everything that sobriety was going to give me. And that was absolutely how I approached this. I didn't start thinking that I'd been deprived of something or I was losing something. I started thinking about everything that I was gaining in this journey. And whenever I had negative thoughts or uncomfortable feelings, I focused on the bigger picture, everything that I was gaining, how my relationship with my wife and my son were improving, how I was becoming more productive, sleeping better, more energy, my skin was looking clearer, my eyes were starting to glow, everything was improving in my life. I was more present, I was starting to smile again, which hadn't happened in a long, long time, believe me. So make sure you're focusing on your mindset and that you're starting to think like someone who's really passionate and enthusiastic about what they're doing. And if you need a bit of motivation, there's loads of other videos on my YouTube channel that talk about getting the right mindset in sobriety. Make sure you watch some of those. If you're feeling like you've had something taken away from you, you need to get that mindset right. It's absolutely critical. Now, worrying about slipping back into old patterns can be consuming. It can feel really, really painful. And it's important to notice what it is that's triggering you to have those feelings. And again, it is something to use your journal for, to write it down. It just works so well when you write these things down. Every time something triggers you, explore it. Get under the skin of it. What are the emotions that are attached to that feeling? And where are they coming from? Is it something in the now, or is it something from the past that's coming up now? You might have seen my video about trauma and addiction. So much of the things that come up for us are actually linked to our childhood, and we can have inner child reactions to things, even though they're in the now, they're reactions from our inner child to things that happened when we were much younger. Start to pay attention to what's triggering you. And I don't just mean triggering you to drink, I mean triggering you emotionally. I like to call it a hysterical reaction. So when you have a reaction that is out of sync with the way other people react, that's when you know it's probably some kind of childhood trauma, inner child reaction that's coming up for you. For me, my issues all stem around abandonment and rejection because my father walked out on me when I was 2 years old. So anything that involves rejection or abandonment, so please don't stop watching this video, otherwise I'll feel very abandoned and rejected. That is what causes a trigger for me. But I understand it. And when I started to learn about it and understand where it was coming from, it put the pieces of the puzzle together. I was able to explore it and I was able to take steps to heal it. And that was really important. So start noticing what your triggers are, where they're coming from, where they might stem from, and then you can move towards doing something about it. And there's loads of other videos on my channel that will help you with that. And finally, one of the biggest things in sobriety that's going to make sure you don't have a setback is sticking to what's working. If something's working for you now, you might have new routines. You might be using alcohol-free drinks that work for you, and you might be avoiding certain places that really are a trigger to drink. You might have stopped going to the pub. You might have stopped hanging out with toxic people. Whatever it is, stick to the routine that works. If it's working now, it's going to carry on working. It sounds so simple, but if you've got a system that's working for you, why change it? Why invite toxicity into your life when you've got a routine that is clearly healthy and is keeping you sober? Stick to that routine and just work on making it better and refining it and polishing it so you become even more healthy and an even better version of yourself. But definitely stick within those boundaries that you've created for yourself, and you'll be sure to have an amazing time in sobriety. So hopefully that gives you some strategies for dealing with that fear of relapsing or having a setback. Try not to worry about it. Try to live in the moment, live in the now. You're sober at the moment. Enjoy it. Be proud of what you're doing and be passionate about being part of the amazing sober community, because it really is something special.